and we'll do introductions, and I'll say a little bit why I brought the article. So welcome everybody. I expect there'll be some more people coming on. I'm Phyllis, I'm facilitating today. The rules are kind of simple. I'm going to keep a list of people who want to be able to speak, and I'll call in order of the list. Hi Marla, there's your face. So if you want to get on the list, put up one finger. So if you see my finger, how it blends into the wall behind me a little bit, you want to move your finger, be exuberant with it, because it's hard to look at all these little squares and notice sometimes. And be aware of what's behind your finger. We allow clarifying questions, and to ask the current speaker a clarifying question, you put up two fingers, and also you might want to move those around. The clarifying question is for you to ask the speaker to explain something they said, either a term or maybe you didn't hear something. If your intention in asking the question is to have a conversation with the person, that's not the place. The way the conversation works is then you would get on the list and you would make your statement, and you could say, you know, well, my response to what so-and-so said was, I feel this way, or I remember this. We don't allow name calling. We don't allow hostility, any sort of things that would make this an unsafe environment for anyone. Am I forgetting anything? Anybody? Oh, we also want, after you do your introduction, you please mute yourself and then unmute yourself when you're called on to speak, and mute yourself again. Because sometimes there's background noise and you're not even aware, and it just makes the meeting go smoother for everybody. Okay, now did I forget anything? Nancy, are you able to time keep for me? Okay. I read your lips. I think you said okay. Okay, so we'll do the introductions now, and I just say your name and maybe how long you've been coming to Erace. I'm Phyllis. I've been coming since 2008. I feel like I should say, hi, I'm Phyllis, and I'm a recovering racist. So Bill.
I'm Bill Ives, and I've been coming to Erace with my wife, Cindy, for about 3 years. And we were introduced to Erace by Walterine and Dennis, and we really miss them.
Marva. Got to unmute.
I've been coming to Erace post-Katrina, and I learned something every Saturday, and I have learned many things this article. Thank you, Phyllis.
Thank you. Louise?
I'm Louise, and myself and my husband, Roy, have been coming for over 20 years, off and on.
Great. Thank you, Louise. Kate?
My name is Kate Robinson, and this is just my second meeting. And like Marva, I learned something last week, and I learned something this week too. So I look forward to the meeting.
Thank you for coming back. Nancy?
I'm Nancy Moore. I have been coming to Erace since June of 2007. So I think it's going to be 14 years. It's been a while, but I enjoy it every Saturday.
Great. Becky? Don't forget to unmute.
Good morning. I'm Becky Richardson. I live in Boston, but I come to New Orleans in the winter. And I've been coming to the meeting for a couple of years, thanks to Bill and Cindy.
Welcome back.
Thank
Cindy?
Good morning. I'm Cindy Morse. retired kindergarten teacher. I find these helpful. I learned something, and it's encouraging to be around people who are on the same page about race or similar page.
Thank you. Lynn?
Good morning. I'm Lynn Frank. I've started coming around 2018, although I had it in my mind longer than that, but Bill kept posting it on Facebook and encouraged me to take the lead. And I'm glad I did.
We're glad to. Marla? Your audio is not working, but it shows you're unmuted.
It's my headset, sorry. I'm still learning technologically inept. Hey, I'm Marla Burke. I have been coming to Erace since I guess the summertime, and Phyllis introduced me to Erace. Very happy to be here.
Thank you. Pedro?
Hi, Pedro Gatos. I'm from Austin, Texas. Been coming to Erace for the last, I guess, about 6 months or so. So really enjoy the conversations and the information. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle Manning Scott, and I've been coming to Erace since the end of last summer, 2020. And I was introduced by Louise, because the two of us and Pedro all live in Austin.
Thanks. Leonetta?
Good morning, my name is Leonetta Taylor. I've been a member of the Erace since the same time. And I'm a social worker.
Thanks. Leonetta, it sounds like there's some background talking, like a TV or a radio when you're speaking. I don't know if that's true. Glenn? You're muted. Glenn, are you talking to us? You're muted.
Phyllis, Leonetta is muted and we still hear the noise, so it's not coming from her.
I don't hear the noise like I heard it when she was talking.
I can hear it.
Huh, weird. Okay, sorry, go ahead, Glenn.
Glenn Abdullah. I've been coming to Erace since 1994. And I hope today that I'm not on the same page with everybody.
Are you ever?
Hot mess.
Marion.
Oh, let me get off. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, because the computer was put in the shop, and I had trouble logging on to the meeting. That's why I'm late. But anyway, I can only see 1, 2, 3, 5 of you.
Oh,
So
well, I'll be able to see you if you raise a finger. We're just
Okay.
saying our name and how long we've been coming to Erace.
Okay, all right. Okay, I blinked off again.
We hear you. I hear you and see you.
Okay, all right. The thing keeps blinking out. I just got it out of the shop. Okay, I'm Marion, and I've been attending the Erace discussions since June of 1993. And I hope I won't keep blinking out off the screen this morning.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Nancy, if you're going to be the timekeeper, you got to stay unmuted so people can hear it. I know I can't hear you yet. So.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
You're right. I do.
Okay. I selected this article it's sort of in response to the shooting at the Asian spas in Georgia, where a young white guy claiming sexual addiction decided the only way to overcome that was to kill some women, specifically Asian women. women of Asian descent, because he had a problem. And also sexualizing a person of another race is a form of racism. So, and I think we ignore a lot of times that women are killed just because they're women, whether it's in a domestic relationship or it's some whack job incel who decides he's going to shoot women. I've noticed a lot of times when there's a mass shooting, a lot of the victims are women. If you read through the names. And I think, you know, it's all of us women in this together. In this case, it's not just one race, and it's also trans women, especially Black trans women, who are targeted and killed at a very high rate. And I would argue that that is the case because of misogyny in this culture, and that they are sort of an affront to the patriarchy because they have basically chosen the other side. That's my brief theory on that. So again, 1 finger to get on the list. The list is open, 2 fingers to raise a clarifying question, and I'll call on you for that. Anybody want to start? Nancy, don't forget to time yourself.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Let me
I see you,
start timing
Becky.
myself. There we go. Okay. Years ago, I used to work for, I volunteered for a metropolitan battered women's shelter. And they put you through a lot of extensive training. And one of the things that they do is try to help you to understand the mind of the abuser. Okay. And what they basically told us at that time was that, and I find it to be true about a lot of things, is why do men abuse? Because they can. It's just simply that they are physically stronger, and they can do it. And they can take total power. If they want to exert their force, they can't do it. There's a number of ways when it comes to abuse. There's financial abuse, there's emotional abuse, there's verbal abuse, there's mental, abuse. But all those things seem to take place before somebody feels that they have the right to put their hands on you and you're not going to do anything about it, or you can't do anything about it. And so physical force is like the number one reason why men abuse.
Thank you.
What I have to say in a nutshell. Is there a clarifying question?
No, I didn't see one. Becky?
I was talking to my partner about this morning, and it certainly is true that with the increased support for, I don't know if you call it conservative, but for deeply, Christian people who believe that women are the reason that they enjoy sex and that that's evil. But that was another driving point behind the killing of the people in Atlanta. The man went and enjoyed sex the week before and then came back and killed the women. So he thought that he had taken care of his, quote, sin. But I was talking to my partner, and he said when he was in the military that women were not assaulted, but that the military was the rules of how you live in the military were better enforced at the time of Eisenhower, and the enforcement is laxer now, as well as there are more women in the service because they're not just nurses and that kind of thing, but they're actually fighting alongside the men. So it seems to me the military really does have to seriously enforce discipline for this to change, and take action against the people who are raping women and otherwise molesting them. So we'll see what happens, because I'm sure that Trump would never have approved of that. And he would have weakened the regulatory power in the military. But Biden hopefully will strengthen it. That would help. But it won't help the people who blame women for reproduction or whatever, however you want to call that. So I'm going to have to leave early, and I'm very sorry because I would like to hear this discussion. Thank
well, someday we'll put the recording up somewhere when we figure all that out.
you.
Thank you, Becky. Oh, sorry, Marla has a clarifying question for you.
Yes, thanks for the comments, Becky. I was just curious how he believed or knew, your partner knows, that sexual assaults and things weren't happening during the time that he was in the military.
Well, of course, you can't prove that, but there weren't cases back then. And there was one rule he described to me, that if a woman was tied up and a military man raped him, he would be hung. So that's a pretty strong statement. But of course, I don't believe the women that are being attacked now are being tied up, but they may be. Who knows? But I'd never heard that before, but that was true when he was in the military. So he was stationed in Korea, and I guess it was before the Korean War. It was in the mid 1950s. And
Thank you.
Can't quite remember when Eisenhower was the head of it all, but it was a lot more regulated at that time than it is now. So
Thank you. I have on the list Bill and Nancy. Is there anybody else right now? Marva. Okay, so Bill, go ahead. And Lynn. Oh,
there we go.
There you go.
I want to second what Nancy said. I had my ex-wife for a while was a social worker when she got out of college, and she dealt with a domestic abuse. And she said one of the men who was guilty of abuse said to her, "It's my God-given right to beat up my wife and children." So he thought that God had given him that right, and which is horrible, of course. But how do you deal with someone like that who feels that it's their right to abuse the people in their family? I also noticed that the Violence Against Women Act was renewed recently, but 174 Republicans voted against the Violence Against Women Act, which is despicable. I think just to second what Nancy was said too, I think I've read here or other places that the majority of women who are abused are killed by their domestic partner or someone they know. And that's it for now. I'll come back later.
Thank you. Nancy?
I also want to say, having been in the military, I was very fortunate. I was in an air squadron out of Andrews Air Force Base, which is outside Washington, D.C. And it was a 150-person unit. And there were less than 10 women in that unit. But I don't know if they were particularly upstanding gentlemen, but I never really had a problem outside of the normal eyeballing and maybe catcalling somewhat, which you find pretty much anywhere, even if you go to the grocery store. But in our unit, we did not have any problems there. And I don't know if that was due to the leadership. I don't know. I don't know. But I do know that at that time, and this was in the 70s and the 80s, that women still did not report. So maybe part of the answer to Rebecca's question that it didn't happen. It's not that it wasn't happening. It just wasn't being reported. Okay, you were discouraged from reporting it. It could jeopardize your career, not the person that did it, your career, if you report it. And that still goes on today in jobs. You know, your chances of advancement, if you got a boss that's harassing you and you go to HR about it, it's you that's going to suffer the penalty, even with Me Too, because it hasn't got filtered down everywhere. But you're the one that's going to suffer, not the person that's committing the grievance.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Marva, you're next.
You're unmuted, but you're not.
Are you
Can't
talking?
hear you.
Hear me?
You got to talk louder.
You got to talk louder. Turn your volume up.
Oh, I don't know how to do that.
Okay.
Well, talk closer to the mic.
Okay. I did a little research on this topic.
Glenn, I see you.
The late South African feminist activist and scholar Dana Russell first popularized the word femicide in 1976. Russell hoped that a term to describe the killings and murders of women would help rally the activists behind the fight to protect women. Since then, activists have united to stand up against femicide around the world. Um, I didn't know and haven't heard till this article the term femicide, and it was coined in 1976. I don't know why we hadn't heard of this term until late. That's
Okay.
all.
Thanks very much. Lynn, you're next. And I saw you, Marla. After Lynn, I've got Louise, Bill, Glenn, and Marla. Am I missing anybody? Okay. Lynn.
When I was young, there was a complicity in society to treat women as second-class people. Somebody posted on Facebook something about Red Skelton, what a great comic he was. And every single joke that he made was how stupid his wife was and how you couldn't count on women to do anything except cause trouble. And that seems to be typical. The TV shows were similar, and women internalize it. I know I myself was lacking in a great deal of confidence, and I seldom spoke to men in social groups thinking, well, my comments are not going to be well received. They're not interested. And maybe it wouldn't have been. A turning point for me was Watergate, when I saw Barbara Jordan and Elizabeth Holtzman taking charge and being extremely competent and having power. And little by little, since then, women have asserted themselves. And so what happens inevitably when people forget their place in society, we have backlash. And I've seen nothing but backlash since those years. I especially hate it when I see backlash against women politicians like Hillary Clinton. She has been vilified and demonized and treated as evil incarnate ever since she came on the political scene. It was very shocking to see that in our supposedly more enlightened time, more women are being killed than ever before. And I attribute that to our society is becoming more violent. We have mass shootings. We have road rage. And women are suffering as well as people of color from the violence in society. Probably my 2 minutes are up.
Thank you.
You got 4 seconds. You did real well.
Thank you, Lynn. Louise.
So I agree that men do this because they can, but I think it's also out of power, similar to racists. You know, they want power over another people's. I was raised in a very abusive family. In fact, I knew policemen by their name because they were around our house so much. My memories of my mother being dragged down the stairs by her hair beaten up. She had a bruise on her neck or a mark on her neck until the day she died from being throttled. He was a very abusive person. And I also think what Lynn was saying about how women internalize it from that, because it was that era a long time ago, that yeah, women feel not that they deserve it, but don't have the gumption to fight against it, as I think a lot of women do now. Perhaps, obviously there's case by case, but so yeah, it's power, and just because they can, and a few other details mixed in there. That's it.
Thank you for sharing that, Louise. Bill, you are next. Marva.
If the growing numbers are simply the recognition, the reporting, I wonder if the reporting is growing rather than the actual abuse. I don't have the answer to that question. I know that police killings of Black men seem to be increased, but it's more that we're recognizing it with video cameras and other kinds of things. Once again, I want to second what Nancy said. The same ex-wife, when she was later an academic, and she was, as a young woman, she was quite attractive, and she got a plum job at a university, but her boss, who was the chairman of the department, started coming on to her and threatening her if she didn't allow him sexual access. And he threatened her children. He said to her, "I know where your children play." But she was afraid to report it because he was more powerful and he could destroy her career. So she got a job at a different university rather than report it. But he still went after her and still tried to destroy her career, even though she never reported it. So it's, I don't have the answer to this question, but it's very disturbing that men do this. I'm a man, but I can honestly say I've never thought about hurting my partner or anyone else. But obviously it's rampant. So.
Thank you, Bill. Glenn.
The American woman is more confident than any woman on the planet. And it didn't start in the 2000s. It started back in the 40s. When the male was out there fighting in the war, it was the woman who was in the factories doing the jobs that were strictly for men. And also they flew, after they would build the planes, they would fly the planes to bring them to where they were going to be used. So they, they're not, lacking in confidence. And now, one thing I don't like is it about the American woman is this: they want to do everything that a man does. They want to go into combat, and they weren't allowed to go into combat to be fighter pilots and these type of things. So and when you get into these combat positions, you're going to be more victimized because you out your road. If you get caught by the enemy, you're not going to be treated the way a male soldier is going to be treated. And my nature, the nature of man, is to protect the woman. If you have a woman in combat, you're going to be thinking more about protecting that woman. So I don't, I see some of the, I think we in areas where we shouldn't be that meal area.
Lynn has a clarifying question for you, Glenn.
Hi, Glenn.
Yeah.
Talking about World War II, women did feel empowered during the war effort, working in the factories and even learning to fly and deliver those airplanes. But I'm asking you, in the 1950s, are you aware that there was a giant campaign to put women back in their place and use those new appliances like washing machines and dryers and vacuum cleaners and get all dressed up for their man when he came home?
Yes, but now I wouldn't disagree with when all those millions of soldiers came back, that they had to have a job, and they shouldn't be at home with the dress with the apron on. They needed those jobs that the women had. They were now to get their jobs.
Okay, Bill has a clarifying question for you, Glenn.
Glenn, I'm just trying to understand. You seem, maybe I misunderstood you, but you seem to imply that women should not be in the military in combat positions.
Oh, absolutely not. That's I mean, absolutely, I believe that they shouldn't be. That the man, I believe the man is the protector and maintainer of women. I believe that.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
That's you. It got clarified. Point of order. Thank you. Okay, I want to point out this article is not about how enemies treat women captured in combat. It's about how in combat, it's about how their own peers in their own military rape and kill them. Let's just be clear about that. Okay, next on the list is Marla.
Put me back on the list.
Okay, you're on.
Okay, that's hard to follow. Just a couple of things that I thought of while I was listening to all of this. I think killing of women in the United States and elsewhere around the world, it's happening completely in defense of masculinity. It is defending the male patriarchy. It is defending those values that are held true. And it is because of the insecurity that results in men who are concerned about those types of power being taken from them. And whether it's consciously thought of like that or not, in a man's brain, I don't know. But the reality is it comes out in violence and killing. And then the other thing I thought of that came up was the terminology of femicide and why we don't really hear it in the United States. And I started kind of reading a little more about femicide in general. I mean, the truth be told, we've kind of failed to organize, I think, in the United States as women. We haven't gathered our resources and our power together like we really could. I mean, it seems that it's starting to happen more, but in reality, the only way to stop violent men is to track them, I think. And we don't really have reliable or, completely useful ways in process right now in the United States to successfully track, for example, stalker laws. They have failed women time and time again, as we've seen. Women continue to die at the hands of their partners or their former partners, and they have repeatedly called for assistance from police and have gotten absolutely nothing and as far as assistance goes. So the only way to stop the violence is to track the violent makers, the people who make the violence.
Glenn has a clarifying question for you, Marla. You're muted, Glenn.
In the process of trying to open myself back, I forgot the question. Wow. I got it.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
I'm done. May go take a shot of tequila or something now, but I'm done.
Okay, Michelle is next.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the one of the statistics in the article that struck me the most, and I've seen it before, but that 5,600 or 5,600 Native women were reported missing last, or the year the article was written, I think last year. So a statistic reported by the FBI. And so I quickly did a little bit of digging here, and I just, from one article I came across, it said Native American women are murdered and sexually assaulted at rates as high as 10 times the average in certain counties in the US. Crimes overwhelmingly committed by individuals outside the Native American community. And I just, it blew me away. And it's just, I guess it reiterates the fact that I think the Native American population in this country is so overlooked, and the crimes and the atrocities, that we continually perpetuate against these people is just basically swept under the rug in this country. And I just wanted to point that out because it was another statistic that came back to me in that article that just is like smacked me in the face. So
Thank you very much, Michelle. Marva.
There also needs to be more effective sensitivity training. Um, there, there's a need to know what for. They need to be able to see the growing signs of violence before they lead to death, especially tracking the police. If there's a man that shows up to a 911 call and he believes women are not of value, he may pass over his duties. And I have seen it not documented when a police shows up at a domestic violence call. He needs to, they need, there's a need to have a woman along with a man to go out to those calls. And there's a need to, for medical teams, social worker, doctors, nurses, to document. And if so many documentations come in of that same patient that's traumatized, abused, there needs to be a program in place to mandatory make her abuser um, uh, uh, comply with sensitivity training, uh, ways to deal with their abuse. It needs to be a process in the workings of reporting. And there needs to be, from a legal standpoint, police training and medical training and documentation. So that all flows together in tracking. That's all.
Thank you. I have Nancy, Glenn, and Amal. Nancy.
Okay, in response to Glenn's question, I've seen women in the military and they weren't gay or lesbian, but they were stronger and had a lot more competitiveness than a lot of men. Not a lot, but they are women. And, since women voluntarily choose to join the military, they are not drafted. They know what they're getting into if they go into combat. They know. Okay, so it's not like they go in there unaware. Oh my God, I didn't know what was going to happen. Except for that woman that went to the citadel, which I last time said I was extremely upset about.
I couldn't
But
understand what your last statement was. What did you say?
I said, except for the woman that went to the Citadel,
Oh, okay.
and she only lasted a week or 2 weeks or whatever, and she was like, I can't handle it. Okay. But most women who do go into the military, they do it voluntarily and they know what they're getting into. Okay. And if they go into a career choice that does involve combat, they know what they're getting into. Okay. So if they get captured and they're behind the scenes and they know that they are going to be treated differently than a man simply because they are a woman. The other thing that I wanted to say too, as far as what Marva's comment was, I was going to talk about narcissism, okay, because a lot of these people are closet narcissists, okay, that do that. Also, the government or the law enforcement or whatever, you're right, Marva, they do not put into place tracking mechanisms. A woman can get a restraining order, and that is about as worthless as the paper that it's written on. Okay, it doesn't do one thing. You tell him, oh no, you can't come within 100 yards of blah 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 wherever she is. If somebody is that bound and determined to get to you, that piece of paper means nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'll get back on the list.
Okay. Okay, Glenn's next, then Amal, Leonette, I saw you. Nancy, I got Marva, I got Bill. Okay, Glenn.
Yes, I now remember the question I wanted to ask Marla was what is the percent of women that are being raped in the military? My guess, it wouldn't come to 1%. And also like to also that there are men being raped just as well in the military.
Oh, well.
And with a man, he's so embarrassed that he won't report it. But there have been some that have reported it. So there may be many men that are getting raped.
I have a clarifying question for your clarifying question. Who's raping the men?
Other men.
Thank you. And do you think that women are not embarrassed when they're raped, besides a lot of other feelings?
Well, no, I wasn't saying that, but I don't know where you got that from, but no. I believe that they're just as embarrassed, but I think it's more for a man when he's raped, not to let anybody know about it. And a lot of people, both men and women, when they sign up for the military, they're signing up because they may be desperate. They want the money for the free education. They want the GI Bill. They want all these things. But when a war break out, they are shocked that now they got to go to war. I remember on 16, they had women on the ship when the Gulf War broke out. They became so terrified of being killed that they began to have sex with the men, hoping they can get pregnant and get out the military. That's the point I want to make.
Thank you. Amal.
Oh, Marva has a clarifying.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see. For Glenn.
I forgot what my question was.
It's in the family.
Okay. Okay. Amal.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so I was looking at the article and I was thinking to myself that the people are trying to correct these things at the military level, but they shouldn't be at that level. The things you see going on in the military is nothing but a reflection of regular society, because that's where you recruit these people from. If you don't correct it in regular society, it'll never get corrected in the military. So that's where the correction should start. You correct it in regular society, and then you recruit these people. You won't have to worry about it transferring itself over into the military. The violence that you're seeing against women is terrible in the military, and I don't know where that 1% number came from. I think it's much more higher than that, but because it's more than 1% in regular society, so I'm certain it's almost more than 1% in the military. So the article is a good article. The only problem I got with the article is the issue as it relates to these men who want to be women, aka these trans women that they're talking about. No, that is not the same as what goes on against women. I'm talking about women who born that way, not against somebody who trying to dismember themselves and become something that they're not. So whenever we have talk about issues with women, we do not have to include these men who want to be women. That is not the same issue. We can talk about women without including them. That's it.
Thank you, Amal. I knew that would be an issue for you when I chose the article.
But you would.
Leonetta?
Good morning, everybody. After I speak, I'm going to leave. I have a family funeral to attend on a webinar, and it was a good article, Phyllis. I want to start, Nancy. The only thing that the restraining orders are good for is when after he kills the victim, the charges are getting increased. That's the only thing and wallpaper. Those are the only two things that restraining orders are good for. And I wanted the article talked about trans women, trans Black women are being killed numerous of times. And I'm not going to say all Black men, but most Black men are homophobic. These women, these trans go into these places. This is things that I've been told by clients, and they don't tell the men that they're trans, and that's what's happening to them. They're being beat up and killed, and it's a problem. I don't know how it's going to stop, but that's part of the problem that Black trans are being killed in the numbers that they're being killed. And it's not all just Black men, other race of men do it, and racism is involved in it too. So I just wanted to bring that to the discussion, and I have to leave, and I'll see y'all next Saturday.
Thanks, Leonetta. Bye-bye. Sorry about your family loss. Next, I have Nancy.
Oh, I must be part of the Washington family. I forgot what I wanted to say. I know it wasn't something in response to something Glenn said. It always is. But I might think about it in the wrap up.
Okay. Marva, you're on the list next. Marion, got you on the list.
And
now.
Lynn.
And Lynn. Okay, and I'm going to make Lynn be the last before we do the wrap up in interest of time to see how this goes. Okay, Marva.
Okay, in my research, I found the top 5 most incidents of femicide, and the top 5 countries are Argentina, El Salvador, India, Honduras, and Mexico. I wonder where we rank. And I think we should be in the top 5 because failure of documentation and recognition of the problem is where USA is not included in that top 5. It mostly have to do with poor countries and lack of support medical wise and policing, I think. the U.S. fails to rank high because of lack of documentation and actions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Marva. Next, I have Bill.
The one problem I have with the article is a different one. The article seems to focus on people of color, and I'm sure that sexual abuse is certainly not limited to people of color. There are many white men who engage in sexual abuse. Now, the question is whether it leads to femicide or just stays sexual abuse. That may be an issue. I don't have the stats on that, but I know that sexual abuse is certainly not limited. White men are just as likely to engage it as any men. If you are guilty of a sex crime, you have to register as a sex offender. And when you move into a neighborhood, the whole neighborhood knows that you're a sexual offender. And I think we should do the same thing for domestic abuse. And that might curtail it a little bit. If men know that they're going to be labeled as a domestic abuser, and wherever they go, that label is going to follow them around. So people are warned of their behavior. Okay.
Thank you. Louise?
Marva has
sorry.
a clarifying.
Marva has a clarifying for Bill.
Yes, Marva.
You got to unmute first.
Do you think it would help if they would document the abuser on dating websites?
Absolutely.
Block them.
Yeah. Or block them or
Thank
identify them.
Great, thank you. Okay, Louise, you're next.
Okay, there is a lot, but I think I wanted to answer Glenn's, one of many, but the one comment that, that if men get raped, they have that feeling of embarrassment as well as everything else, the abhorrent feeling one has after being raped. For sure, I do agree they have maybe a little bit more embarrassment because of their excessive machismo and feeling of they've had their power taken away. They've been, it's because they're, in general, there is a lot of feeling that men are, and I hate to say it, Glenn, but superior people, stronger, better. And again, I have to put this with racism as well. For, this is the feeling that we're superior, we're better, we're in control, we have that control. So when someone gets raped, of course, their control was taken away, and it was like, oh my Lord, they can't face that feeling. So yes, they are less prone to, go and tell people about it. I don't really know where I'm going with this. Just that male masculinity is it's a toxic thing, and I don't know, Glenn, if you're a misogynist or if it's just something that's in your. I don't know where you're coming from with these feelings about women. That's it.
Thank you. I've got Marion next, and then Lynn, and we might have room for a couple others after Lynn. So if anybody wants to get back on the list, they can raise their hand. Marion, go ahead.
I just wanted to say.
Sorry, Glenn's got a clarifying question for Louise, and I see you, Pedro.
Oh.
No, he got one finger.
Oh, he had two. I'm not.
I know he put up two, but now he got one.
Okay, well, Glenn.
Pedro has one.
Okay, I've got Marion, Lynn, Pedro, and Glenn, and then we'll do the wrap up.
Okay, when I read this article, I immediately thought about an in-law who was married to this scoundrel monster beast for over 40 years. He was almost 300 pounds and she weighed about 100. And he dropped dead on the kitchen floor last year. And it might sound terrible on my part. I didn't go to his funeral. I'm not sorry he's dead. But I found out yesterday from another relative, she's drinking herself to death since he died. That has, and I'm thinking it has to do that he beat her so and mistreated her so to the point. I understand that sometimes the victim will take on these attitudes. They've had their self-esteem beaten out of them, and I guess that's why she's drinking herself to the point of almost death. And the other family members are very disturbed by this, and they've suggested that she go to counseling, and she won't go. She does a lot of crying, and she talks about how much she misses this person. So that has an effect on women too. I think you have gotten so accustomed to being mistreated like this, you actually miss your abuser. I don't understand it. I guess because I was never abused, but I just find it just so tragic that this is another side of a woman being abused to the point where she misses her abuser and then starts engaging in these self-destructive tendencies of drinking herself nearly to death. I just find it just so sad, and we're all praying and hoping that she will go to counseling and pull herself together. But I'll be honest with you, it might sound terrible, but I'm glad he's gone because it was disgusting to be around him, knowing that he mistreated her to that point. She has scars on her body. He was a big blowhard. And I'd almost gag when I'd be around him, when we would have family get-togethers for the holidays. But the poor thing is drinking herself to death since he died. So I think that's another facet of a if a woman is married to someone like that and she has been mistreated to the point where she has no self-esteem. So now she's engaging in these self-destructive tendencies of drinking herself nearly to death.
Thank you, Marion. Lynn?
I'm very encouraged by the appointment by Joe Biden of so many women in the government. And I'm especially dancing over the appointment of Deb Haaland as Secretary of the Interior. And I wouldn't be surprised if she takes up the problem of Indigenous women's disappearance and attack. And she's well positioned to do so as a Native American herself. But putting women as head of so many departments is another lesson that women are not other. They are competent, they are intelligent, they are responsible and dependable. So bravo for him. One article I read said some men grow up hating women because their mothers disciplined them and raised them and blah, 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 because their fathers weren't involved. And the article suggested that more parental leave should be given to men to share the child rearing responsibilities and to show a soft nurturing side and to change the discussion that implies that to be masculine is to be tough and never cry and not care and lash out when things don't go your way.
Thank you, Lynn. Pedro?
Yeah, so a couple things. Number one, I think there's no doubt that Hillary Clinton was vilified because she's a woman and a very strong and competent woman. But also, she was largely responsible for the Libyan invasion, which in 2011 took the country in Africa that had the highest human development index and has turned it into a horrific place for men and women. And in Honduras, she did the same as Secretary of State in 2009, enabling the coup there. So I think it's really important to separate personalities from deeds and be able to look at the deeds and judge them individually and separate that out. The other point I wanted to make is I spent my career in alcoholism and drug abuse, managing the Travis County agency that was responsible for assessments for alcohol and actually family violence deals. I was not as well versed in family violence, but a lot of it was attributed to drinking problems. But clearly, it's a power and control separate entity as well that's been mentioned. And this power and control is a form of dominance. The rates are much greater than have been discussed in this article, or at least in this conversation. It was like, I think closer to 3 out of 10 or 4 out of 10 women have suffered some type of sexual or physical violence from a man in our country. It's just not reported. And men, it's more like 1 out of 10. In fact, some men have been abused by women in these relationships as well. So that's just what I wanted to add to the conversation. These can be downloaded by just Googling the subject matter.
Thank you very much, Pedro. Glenn.
Okay. I think somebody accused me of misogyny, so I'm gonna have to look that word up. But it don't sound good.
It means you hate women.
What?
It means hatred of women.
No. You can't get a sum of what a person is. We talk about one subject today, and I'm only got 2 minutes to talk. So I can't give a complete understanding how I feel about certain things. Now, far as a woman is concerned, the only way the man is superior in the woman is in his muscles. The woman has the same brain that the man has. And he is superior in wealth. I ain't talking about individually. Y'all women out there got more money than I got. You women in this show got more money than I have. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the control that man has been given to him because of the great wealth he has over America. Y'all jump at everything. Now in 2016, I got some statistics that 8,600 women were raped, and also 6,300 men were raped in 2016. So I didn't think that many men would get raped, but yeah. So, but when you look at things, when you look at it, you got over 1 million people in the military. So I don't know what percent that would be. That's it. I'm tired of looking at y'all frowning and all that other stuff over what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. So it's 11:10. It's a great time to head into the wrap up. I believe Cindy and Kate are the only 2 people on the list who didn't speak yet. So let's start the wrap up with them, and they'll get 2 minutes, and then we'll move into everybody else to get 1 minute, and then for their wrap up, and then I'll do my wrap up. So Cindy, would you like to go first?
I know. One of the realities of this, it's just like child abuse. The abuser is in connection with the person, the victim. There is a relationship. Certainly some rapes and some abuse happens of unknown people, but most of them are within a connected relationship. The abuser is the one in power. The one who is abused is often attached emotionally and cares about and forgives, and you can't even get them to leave the relationship very often. Same with child abuse. I think it's the same thing with sex abuse. It's really sad, but it's a lack of confidence on the part of the victim as a separate, valued person. And that takes years and years of feeling unsuccessful to get to that point. It's sad, but it's very true for many, many women, many children. It's heartbreaking. When I was teaching, I ran into this kind of thing. You didn't really see it very overtly, but small things that kid says or a parent says in conference, you know something's going on. But very often it's hidden within the family and they protect each other. So undoing it is tough. I have no good solutions. I don't know that our culture has good solutions because the power imbalance is real and hard to undo. Enough.
Thank you, Cindy. Kate, would you like to do your wrap up?
I'm not sure she's still with us. She said
Yes,
she
she
had.
I'm here.
Oh, good.
Oh,
Go
she's
ahead.
here.
So we're doing a wrap
No,
up?
yeah, I just wanted to say that I think abuse a lot of times is learned from other from the parent to the child and so forth. It's something that's learned and it's brought forward. And then also, I think a lot of times women stay in abusive situations because they feel they have no recourse, especially if they're undereducated or they don't have jobs and things like that. And it becomes a financial thing where they just can't afford to get out of the abuse. And of course, it escalates over time. That's about it.
Thank you very much, Kate. Okay, so we'll move into the 1 minute wrap up group. Bill, you want to go first?
Someone mentioned an abuse person who was abused drinking themselves to death. I had an aunt who verbally abused her husband. She also raised my mother because her mother was running the farm. And my mother was deathly afraid of my aunt. And when my aunt died, my uncle drank himself to death. It was a similar kind of thing. And we thought that he would be relieved and that he could finally do what he wanted to do. She tried to get him to stop drinking because she stopped drinking. And he would go out and hide vodka in the garage and sneak it. But when he died at the funeral, he saluted her as he left, and then he proceeded to drink himself to death. So anyway, it's a sad thing.
Thank you. Pedro.
Hey, so I just wanted to, kind of reflect what Amal said earlier, that you really have to go back to the general society and the influences in our culture for the issues that really need to change. And we live in a culture that of incredible wealth inequality, and I think the power and control is connected to that disparity. And we are conditioned to blame others that are being exploited, whether it's immigrants, whether it's other races and those things. And so much of that is is connected. Lastly, there was a comment made about women should know that the military is not a safe place, because it is got higher rates, not lower rates in the general population for offenses. But I disagree. Women should have the right to go into those deals and have the same protections. And That's my last statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Amal?
Yeah, great article. And like I said, I'm just reiterating this is until we correct these things at the general population area. We're not going to correct them in the military, police department, fire department, Fortune 500 companies, wherever you want to go. And until they're corrected in regular society, you're going to continue to see these things escalate at the rate that they've been going. And honestly, I don't see the numbers getting better. They look like they're getting worse every time I see them. So it's not being addressed. And a lot of times, the people who are in positions who are supposed to be addressing it, they're the problem. When you go to the military, a lot of these women who are being raped, they're not being raped by privates who are at the same level they are. They're being raped by the guys who have rank. And the guys who have rank, being that they have the rank that they have, they're afraid to speak out against them because those are the people who are in position to destroy their military their military careers. So they don't say anything at all. So we have to put some checks and balances in place to make sure that these people who are in high positions, who are the problem that are causing these women to suffer in silence, we got to do something about those people.
Thank you, Amal. Glenn? Glenn, are you there? You're muted. There you go. Nope, you muted again. You muted yourself again after you unmuted briefly. Glenn? Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
All right. Come back to me. I forgot it.
Y'all need a checkup. Okay, Marva.
A good article. I'm sorry they didn't have documentation or tracking when I was a child to see where we are today and how far we have come. I know women are stronger today, but it continues. And I haven't seen a decrease visually and news-wise where it has dropped considerably. I'm just interested to know that we are continuing to advance with getting hold of this domestic violence. Thank you, Phyllis, for making me aware of fetal side.
Thank you for all the further research you did. Great batch. Glenn, did you remember?
Yes.
Okay, go.
Yeah. I think man can control this appetite. He can control himself, and I believe that will be the future. That we won't be abusing anyone. It's going to take time. That's it.
Thank you. Louise?
Control their appetite. Yeah, let's just hope they take that abuse off the menu completely, right? I mean, and also, Glenn, I'm sorry, both of my comments are about Glenn. I'm so sorry, but I am sorry to call you a misogynist. I think that was a bit strong for sure, but I do believe, somewhat sexist. Let's put that in there. And you gave a great statistic about men equally, there was the same amount of men that were raped as women in the military. But as Phyllis said, they're both raped. They're all raped by men. right? So it's the perpetrator that we're looking at, not the victim, you know? Anyway, great discussion, fantastic. I'm so glad I went after Glenn, and bye.
Thank you, Louise. Nancy?
I just want to say in response to Bill and Marion's scenarios that a lot of times women are made to feel that they deserve whatever happens to them. Their their confidence in their or a man in this in that example is so low that they feel that whatever this person does, they have convinced them that they deserve whatever treatment that they're getting. Something is wrong with them. They're flawed. They deserve this treatment, and made to feel worthless, or that they cannot exist, or they have no worth without this other person. Okay, it's what codependency that causes. That's what it's called, codependency. And also sometimes women stayed in these relationships because of optics. Okay. Another thing that we learned is that abuse, it has no specific economic class, social class. It has none of that. Anybody can be in any class, any race, any position on the socioeconomic scale can experience abuse. And at the higher end, a lot of times they are more likely to stay quiet because the position in society, the economic loss, there's a lot of things involved in it, particularly years ago, maybe not so much now, but they stayed in those relationships because of optics.
Thank you, Nancy.
Did you say Lynn?
Lynn, yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Phyllis, for opening up a very interesting discussion, and thanks to everyone for good contributions, especially people who have knowledge from their work in social work. I thought it was valuable. Sexism is not the same as racism, but it does cause you to understand some things better if you have felt sexism. Anyway, thank you everyone for commenting.
Thank you, Lynn. Michelle?
Yeah, I don't really have much else to say, but thank you for the article, and I appreciate the comments of everybody. I certainly have learned a couple of things today too, so appreciate it. Hope everybody has a good week.
Thank you. Marion?
Yes, I appreciate everybody's comments. And I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to share, you know, this information, because I actually have, you know, a family member that's suffering right now. So I really am concerned. We all of us are really concerned about her with the drinking, especially, and some people in the family are impatient because the man is dead now, but her life is ruined. But anyway, thank you for the article and everybody's participation. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Marion. Marla?
Yep. Thanks for another lively discussion. I just will leave with the notion that the focus has constantly been on how women and how other folks can protect themselves or keep themselves safer. And I think that consistently detracts from the real issue at hand, which is teach men and boys to behave better and start from there, you know. Anyway, that's all.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for your comments, participation, especially those who shared from personal experience. I also saw my mom experience domestic violence when I was a kid. And yeah, it's a hard thing for a kid to see. It's definitely a hard thing for a woman to experience herself. I currently have a couple that live above me who have had some, mostly him screaming at the top of his lungs at her, cussing. And I realized it was making me feel unsafe in my own apartment, even though I don't even really know what he looks like yet. But at 11 o'clock one night, he was screaming. Not only could I hear him inside my apartment, but I have gone out in the hallway and shut my apartment door and heard him in the hallway too. So he's got some lungs. But he said to her in one night, because I could hear the words, first he said, then don't make me mad. Then stop making me mad. And then he said, I don't want to have to hurt you. And I texted my landlady and told her what I was hearing, and that if physical violence hasn't happened yet in that relationship, it will. And she said she would speak to them. And ever since then, I've not heard those kind of shouting arguments. And I'm like, interesting that he's now able to regulate himself, at least for the time being. We'll see how it goes. I personally am not a believer that men and women have to adhere to traditional gender roles. I think there are some women who are not cut out to be stay-at-home moms, and there's some men who thrive staying home with their children, as an example. And I think that's just completely okay, you know. And it doesn't even have to have anything to do with who makes the most money in their career. In times of war in the past and present, civilian women have basically been considered the spoils of war, the right to rape them, because raping women, many will become impregnated with the enemy's children, and that disrupts culture, that disrupts society. So that has been a thing since forever. The concept that men have the role of protecting women, well, they're not doing a very good job of it, if that's the case. Because there are a lot of men in this culture who ignore what they see happening to women and don't speak out to other men about it. When recently a woman was killed in England, the police went door to door and told women to stay indoors. They didn't go door to door and tell men, you got to get out here and stop these dudes from doing this. And if you're one of the doers, you have to stop and we will find you. In our culture, we have, if you think about TV shows and movies, violence against women in this culture is a form of entertainment. The entire Lifetime channel is a form of entertainment of violence against women. That's why I never watch anything on that station. So just think about all the movies and TV shows and how rape and murder and torture and kidnapping of women, terrorizing women is a form of entertainment. And lastly, I just want to say, Amal, I hope someday that you get to know a trans woman and understand where she's coming from and know her as a human being. I wish that for you, because I think that would change your
Never questioned their
perspective.
humanity. I never questioned their humanity.
You question their femininity.
I didn't question their femininity. I said that a man is not a woman, and a woman is not a man.
Well, I hope you will get to meet a trans woman at some point to understand her perspective. So announcements. Next week we are not meeting because it is Easter weekend. The following Saturday, it's the 10th, I think. We will have board meeting at 9 for the board members. And I think, Nancy, are you the facilitator? Okay. Are there any other announcements or questions?
I just want to say thanks, Phyllis, for your email. I did get it.
Thank you. I did that when I sat down to get onto this meeting. I'm sorry it took so long, and I'll get back to you with the information.
Thanks.
I just wanted to mention something about transgender.
Can we stop recording?
Yep. Thank you. I always forget that. Give me a minute.